Let's talk about the brand new Panasonic Lumix S1H. That's what I'm filming on right now. I'm filming in 5.9K. Oh, that is some resolution, let me tell you. That is a detailed amount of resolution. I can punch in again, get that really uncomfortably close shot, but that's how much detail there is here. That's how much detail you have to play with. Now, this comes in as the new entry into the lineup of S-series cameras. So you've got the S1, which is the kind of hybrid camera, I guess, between video and photo. And then you've got the S1R, which is the more photographic-minded camera. It's got that nice big resolution, so you can get really detailed photos. And now you've got the S1H, which is the more video-focused camera. And this allows us to capture some really stunning videos, a proper professional video camera. And I could see this being used by professionals in all kinds of situations. This camera is really, genuinely very, very impressive. There's a lot to unpack here, so we're gonna dive right into the specs to start off. But, this is exciting. This is an exciting camera. I've been very excited to try this one out. But let's dive right in. So inside the camera, you've got the full frame 24.2 megapixel sensor. That's actually what's allowing you to capture the 6K footage. That's what's allowing you to get lovely photos as well. So it's not just a great video system. It certainly is that, but it is also able to actually capture some really stunning photographs as well. And much like the S1 and the S1R before it, something that I noticed as being particularly impressive while I was shooting photos was the dynamic range. You know, pushing and pulling it in post, it's just really, really impressive. The tones, the look of the final product, and just the amount you can push and pull. Even in JPEG, which we often have to use for new cameras before things have been released to Lightroom and stuff like that, for reading the actual raw files, we often have to use the JPEGs. It's super impressive. I remember this from the S1. It was super impressive then. It's super impressive now. Really, really pleased with that. It's also got the Venus engine inside, which is nice and fast, and the images that you can get from this are just really, really nice. I like Panasonic images anyway. I just like the way they look. I like the tones that you get. I loved it in the S1, loved it in the S1R. Oh, loving it here. And on top of that, you've got the newly developed dual native ISO, which is borrowed from Panasonic's Pro video cameras. And that's giving it significantly better low light performance, and it allows a very high sensitivity with, frankly, truly excellent noise handling. You've also got things like high resolution mode, which allows you to capture 96 megapixel images. So that does that by moving the sensor around using the body IS, so the actual in-body stabilization, to actually capture 8 consecutive images, and then it synthesizes them together into a 96 megapixel raw image. That's a lot of detail. That is a really, really nice thing to have in there, because if you're doing something like landscape or fine art, somewhere where you want a lot of detail, that's a great way to do it. That's a great way to just increase the amount of detail you're going to capture and really get a stunning photo. It's also got continuous shooting mode, 9 frames a second in AFS mode, and 6 frames a second in AFC. So not super fast at all, but then to be honest, I can't imagine that that's what people are going to be buying this camera for anyway. There's other cameras that are much better at that, and specifically for that, whereas this is much more of a video focused system. So I can't imagine that's going to be something that's going to really trip people up when they're looking at getting this camera. You have actually also got the high speed burst shooting mode anyway, which is going to give you those 6K photos if you do want that speed. So there are options there as well. Now let's get on to the real story here with this camera, which is the video. This is where this really excels. You know, you've got some serious professional specs here, and just out shooting with it. I mean, I've been shooting handheld with it as opposed to in a rig or in a gimbal or anything like that, because I'm limited on time and stuff like that. But I really wanted to try that out, obviously because of the stabilization, which we'll talk about in a minute as well. But oh my goodness, this camera for video. Oh, yes. More of this. This camera is really setting the bar very high for video. And I can see this absolutely becoming a go-to camera for all kinds of videographers and filmmakers. So you've got multiple formats and aspect ratios that you can shoot in. 6K at 24p and 5.9K at 30p. That's some outrageous resolution. And that's 6K at 3:2 aspect ratio and 5.9K at 16:9 aspect ratio. You also got things like cinema 4K and anamorphic modes, as well as just general 4K footage. And even if you're downsampling from 6K, so even if you shoot 6K but you output at 4K, you're still going to get that incredible detail. It's still going to look so good. It's just outstanding. You can shoot at 422 10-bit and output as well via 422 10-bit via HDMI simultaneously. This is very much a pro system. It's very much on that professional level where you're going to be getting some really impressive stuff. I have been loving shooting with this camera, and then editing this footage. It's so awesome just to be editing 5.9K footage, 422 10-bit. It's incredible. I love coloring footage anyway, but having this much information to play around with is awesome. Not to mention the Vlog, which is built into this camera. Now I'm shooting in Vlog right now. That's given me 14 stops of dynamic range. So it's a really wide dynamic range there that we're playing around with. Now let me show you what it looks like ungraded. So let's just bring that off. So this is ungraded Vlog footage. You can see there's no contrast, no saturation. And then let's pop the grading back on. Oh, so good, but it's giving you a huge amount of dynamic range, which is really cool. A lot of detail in the shadows, the highlights, really good. Things like colors and skin tones are they're reproduced really well, and you've got something called Vlog View Assist, which applies a LUT while you're shooting so you can better see what the final result should look like. And that basically allows you to concentrate on your actual cinematography and the look of what you're going for. You've also got modes like HDR video and HLG View Assist, and of course high frame rate modes as well. So you've got cinema 4K and 4K footage at up to 60 frames a second. You've got full HD at up to 180 frames a second. And high frame rate recording now features autofocus and audio recording as well, which is great because, to be honest, shooting on the S1 with a higher frame rate, so getting some of that slow motion, you'd have to use manual focus. Now that's not a big problem, but it's really nice to see the autofocus working in the higher frame rate modes with this camera. You've also got interval shooting if you want to shoot time lapses as well, which I really like doing. So that's great news, and I think it's just a nice thing to include, because it just makes setting up a time lapse much easier. Now let's talk about the image stabilization, because this was something in the S1 and the S1R that is just outrageously good. It's so good in these cameras. That's certainly the case here. You've got 6 stops of image stabilization using the 5-axis in-body image stabilization in this camera. It is so good. It's one of the best image stabilization systems I have ever used. Full stop. It's so good. Handheld video recording, very easy using this. Very easy to just do that run and gun handheld shooting. But in addition to that, you can use a much slower shutter speed than you would traditionally be going for while shooting with the IBIS turned on. It's so easy to use. Let's talk a little bit about how this camera feels as well, because this is not like a small mirrorless camera in the sense of the kind of thing you might be downsizing from a DSLR. This is a pretty chunky system. It's a pretty chunky camera, but then it's got a lot going on inside, It's got these exhausts on the side, which I can only assume is to stop it overheating while it's filming in 6K. I can only assume that's why they've been built in there, but it's actually nice to see because it means that you're not going to be suffering from that overheating problem. And I've been shooting, even right now, I've been shooting for 20 something minutes in 6K or 5.9K. No problems with overheating, seems to be absolutely fine. And it's still a lot smaller and lighter than a lot of pro video camcorders, and it offers such a huge amount as a video system. Now, I never felt this was particularly too big or heavy for what I was using it for, and I think for what it is usually going to be used for, so professional video use, this won't even really come into consideration. The actual layout of the controls feels very natural. There's a lot of custom buttons on the camera which make it really easy to change settings on the go. I particularly like the large movie recording button on the top of the camera. It's actually the same size as the shutter button, which makes it super easy to use while recording video. It also makes it feel like a video system, because you've got this big red record button on the top. I just like it. I'm just a big fan of that. It's very comfortable to hold. The grip is nice and deep with custom buttons right where your fingers would be as well. Now, the viewfinder on the back is extremely nice, making it a viable option for shooting video or photographs, and the LCD screen on the back is nice and bright and clear. Now, the screen is able to flip out and twist, which is fantastic. I imagine a lot of people will probably be using this camera with an external monitor, but if you're using it with the LCD screen, it is extremely useful to be able to move it around as freely as this. Now, ultimately, Panasonic Lumix have created a fantastic video focus system here with the S1H, adding to the already impressive lineup of S series cameras. The S1 obviously now sits as the hybrid camera, the S1R sits comfortably as the photographic side of things, and then the S1H comes in as the video system to beat, really. Now you can check out the full specs, the full description, the pricing, everything down in the link in the description. You can see everything there. If you have any questions about the camera at all, pop it down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this as well. I'm really hoping that I'm gonna get some more time with this camera in the near future. I'd love to go a little bit deeper and film maybe a whole bunch of stuff, maybe even a little short, you know, maybe even a little short film. I'd love to give that a go. So maybe we'll try and get our hands on it again. In the meantime though, of course, make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. And if you didn't, you know, because it costs you nothing, and I'll tell you what, I would love that. Make sure to subscribe as well, especially if you're new, because we've got new stuff all the time, tutorials, reviews, all kinds of stuff. I'll see you in the next video, and as always, thanks for watching.